We welcome back New York educator Anthony Rich, who we had on the pod in October 2019. In that episode, which we will link to, he detailed how he and his teacher wife, Sabrina, had saved close to $2 million in their 403B and 457B plans. That episode was called Wealthy Educators. So the obvious question is, will this episode be called Even Wealthier Educators? Anthony, welcome.
Hi, guys. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Before we jump into the questions, we are rekindling a tradition of drinking beer during the podcast. And we did that the last time because I listened to the pod this morning. And, before we start recording, we thought it might be a good idea to bring that tradition back. So I'm going to start with our guest. Anthony, what beer do you have?
I hope you guys have heard of this. I have a heady. Oh wait, it's not going to go.
That's right.
A heady topper. I think this is from Vermont.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
This is like really hard to get, but supposed to be one of the best beers in the country. So I've been saving it for today.
Heady Topper, is that the brewery?
Yes, this is called The Alchemist, Vermont. I'll send you a link to it.
That would be great. All right, Mr. Downhauer,
who has a ski house in Vermont, trades beers with people all over the country. He's in the financial industry. So he gets beers sent to him, and then he sends them this.
Oh, very
That's
cool.
what they all want.
I should send him some New Mexico beers. I'm guessing he probably doesn't have many of those. All right, Mr. Downhauer, what do you got?
All right. I am drinking a Lafay Blonde. It's a Belgium beer. It's literally the last beer I had in my.
Is it the end of like a variety pack? It's like the last one.
It was the Stella. It was the Stella Costco variety pack. So I had drank everything else, and this is it.
Nice. Well, as I mentioned before we started recording, my wife and I and our son were in Ann Arbor last weekend visiting the University of Michigan. My son is going through the college tour thing, and we brought back a beer. It is called Lighthearted Ale, and it is from a Michigan brewery called Bell's. So I'm excited to open this up. All right, gents, cheers.
Salmon on it?
There is a salmon on it. Can you see?
I've seen that. I think I've seen that over here. We it's a different can, but I think I've seen something like that over here.
Let's see. There you can see it now.
There
Apparently it's a very well-regarded local beer, and it sounds like it's got a bit of a national presence. All right.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Right. Well, Anthony, let's start off with teaching, because we talked to you pre-COVID. Clearly, things changed about 2 or 3 months after that interview. How was teaching for you and your wife? And remind us again, our listeners, what grade level you teach.
So I've taught second and third grade for 12 or 13 years in my early career, and then I became a technology teacher. And from there, I became a technology trainer. I trained teachers for about 6 years in the use of technology in the classroom. So that ended in 2008 when the financial crash and all the districts didn't have money. So they eliminated all what they like the fluffy jobs. So then I had two options: either go back to the classroom or go back to being a technology teacher. So I was a 2 through 6 technology teacher for a while, but I was teaching in 3 different schools. So the kids would only see me one for 1 quarter, and I would swap schools every quarter. And now I'm back into my home school that I first started teaching at when I started my career, and I'm full-time there. So kids have technology now 10 months out of the year. And my best friend who runs the camp with me, he became the technology teacher of the other school that I used to work. So I kind of trained him, and now, we work all summer long together. So we bounce ideas off each other all summer, and we work really, really, really closely together. It's like a match made in heaven.
It's so great when you can have that kind of collaboration with a colleague. And what does Sabrina teach?
And Sabrina is her history is business education, library media specialist, computer teacher, but she is a director of technology for her school district. But she's unique in that she's a teacher on special assignment doing an administrative job. So she's paid on a teacher's scale, and the only way she has ability to make more money is to do summer hours. So she makes quite a bit less than an administrator would make in the same position, but she really doesn't have the desire to go back and get her administrative degree and give up that tenure track when we're so close to the end of our careers. Plus, she also works for me with the camp. So her need to make more money, it's kind of a balance between working for the camp and putting the time into becoming an administrator. The only benefit would be pension,
Yeah.
an additional pension payment.
So, in the last pod, we talked about how you and your wife are extremely hardworking. I believe you had mentioned that you had, like, as far as you can remember, had always worked. You always worked in the summers, and then you and your wife created a summer camp. Tell us again about that, and then I want to know how did COVID affect that?
Oh, that was a disaster. Um, so in '08, after working for another camp for about 15 years, I just had a falling out with the woman that we worked for, and it's a long, long story. But basically, I left after being told I would never be able to start my own camp, and I left that camp. It's a great story for another time and many more beers. It's I left that camp. She had about 500 kids. My classes were the most popular classes in the camp, and I thought I could start my own a nice little program in the summer. I left that camp, and I was making maybe $10,000 a summer, which I thought was great. But I had also started a spin-off company to buy my own materials. So my goal was to make $10,000 from the camp, $10,000 buying my own materials, and that was a nice summer job, making maybe 20 grand. That was pretty good money for the summer. Um, and it's all hobby based. So I know out in California, like radio controlled cars are really popular, airplanes, and so that's what I did when I was a kid. So all my classes were radio control based and hobby based and robotics based and electronics based. So I was buying my own materials from these California companies, doing a small markup and making a little bit of extra money there because nobody here, hobby shops couldn't really supply my materials. So when the falling out came, I still had my connections with California, and I started my own camp. And that first year I had 35 kids and never running a camp before. Um, After I collected, maybe 100 grand, you figure, oh, out of 100, maybe I'll keep 50. And unfortunately, I had to write a check at the end of the summer against my house to make payroll for 100 grand. So I was the first year I was in the hole for 100.
Wow.
Second year I was in the hole for 100. The third year I broke even. So like that was, it wasn't the worst thing. We kind of I kind of emptied our savings accounts. Mrs. Rich upstairs really didn't know what I had done. So, she kind of, yeah, Scott. Uh, but, the trust was there. I was really, it was growing. So, the numbers went from 35 to 80 in 1 year, and then from 80 to 150. And at 150, I broke even. And the next year went from like 150 to 240, and then 240 to 350, and then 350 to 400. It just grew exponentially until we kind of outgrew or maxed out the building. And within like 6 years, I had almost 500 kids. So that's kind of our number now is between 450 and 475 is a comfortable number for us. But COVID came, so in 2020, right? So 2020, summer 2020, we had a good 475 kids. COVID came, I had like 80 kids, 90 kids. So we were really under the pressure of the Department of Health because nobody knew what was going on. And we had to cohort the kids. So our summer camp is run more like a college where the kids pick 4 classes a day. and they changed classes, the Department of Health wouldn't let us do that. So they had to be with the same kids, with the same teacher all day long. So you had to find kids who wanted to do that. Parents were willing to send kids to camp. Uh, but I kind of had made the commitment to about 12 of my 30 teachers that I would run something, because a lot of them really do depend on their summer work to make ends meet. So I had about 12 cohorts, 10 to 12. So I had 12 teachers, and I think we had about 20 to 30 counselors that worked with them. And I think we had 80 to 100 kids. But our total income was about 25% of what it normally is. Yeah, it wasn't good. So I took a $150,000 SBA loan to make ends meet. We got some PPP money, which helped. The first one got taken care of. The second one we're still waiting on. And this year we were back at like 80% capacity. And hopefully, I stopped taking any salaries out of camp when things really, March, April, when things weren't doing well. So hopefully, with not taking a salary for a year, we should be able to wipe out that 150 this year and be square going into next year. So yeah, COVID affected us for the business, but I think parents were appreciative that we did something. I it's hard to, the numbers are just astronomical, but I had to refund almost $1.5 million to parents. And I gave the parents options. The only thing that I did to parents is I asked them to cover their own credit card fees, because a lot of parents use Amex and that's a 4% fee. So I explained to them how I did all the explanations, how it worked. And I gave them an option. I'll either give you a 96% refund, right back to your cat check, right back, or you can roll your money over 100% into next year. And a few $100,000 got rolled over, but in my head, I was thinking I would use that to meet expenses for between COVID year and non-COVID year. Nobody knew that COVID was going to last for 12 months. So when things really started happening, I was really afraid of using that money for anything else other than rolling it into next year. So I started using that SBA loan so that, God forbid, this last 2021 summer didn't happen, I would still have that money to refund parents. So literally it sat, you should have put it in Vanguard, but it sat in a money market account doing nothing, so that if I had to, I could refund families. Because in my head, I'm thinking, what am I going to do if I spend all this money on camp expenses throughout the year, like my 12-month expenses, and then I have nothing to give them back if they want a refund? So it all worked out in the end. So now we're planning for summer 2022, and all my teachers are coming back, and we have a bunch of new classes. And Dan, like you were saying with your son with the robotics and AI and VR, we have so much stuff at the camp. Like we're really well known for our 3D printers and design. And one of the things we do from camp is we own about 50, 60 3D printers. I take 12 to my school. My buddy Dave takes 12 to his school. And then the teachers who work for me take 6, 6, 6, 6, and 6. So we have our camp printers all over Westchester serving kids.
Huh.
Because a school could never have 12 printers.
Yeah, Ben has a 3D printer and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Scott, this is such a kind of an East Coast thing, these summer camps. We just don't have that in California. And I've told Scott before, something we really miss about New Mexico is they had what I would call like this fantastic summer camp program at this private school. And it would be just a litany of creative classes that kids could take. And it was basically preschool to high school. There were ropes courses, there was art classes, writing classes, sports. We would drop our kids off, Scott, and we would feel like, wow, we're really good parents because they're doing robotics, they're doing all these things. And I'm just sort of shocked how that is just not generally in the culture of California.
There's no day camps in California like that?
I
Not
mean,
where I live.
there's gotta be. I mean, this was my question. I know that sounds like an opportunity, but I, I kind of don't know what you're talking about. Like, can you describe so how many weeks is
Okay.
it? I mean, like, I don't know anything. I just know the people. I don't even know where they go. I mean, where
Yeah.
is it
All
at?
right. So
How long does
let's
it
compare.
last?
Let's compare our summer schedule. So teachers here get about 9 weeks off in the summer. So we end at the end of June. You have a few days in June, and your summer really begins July 1st. And we go back to school the first week of September. So it's about 9 weeks. So summer camp here for me, we do two sessions. I do 4 weeks in July, and then the end of July into August, 3 weeks. So summer camp is a total of 7 weeks. So kids can take 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 7 weeks. And the kids pick 4 classes for the 4 weeks, 4 classes for the 3 weeks, and they're changing. So they'll have 3 different classes a day. So they could do robotics one period, drone racing one period, then 3D printing, then archery. And there's 100 different classes that we have to choose from. Like you said, anything from I have a guy, a high school English teacher that does graphic novel writing with middle school and elementary school kids. So like I try to describe with my teachers, I try to get everybody to do something that they really enjoy and get away from something that they do during the school year. So I started off doing the radio control cars because that was my hobby when I was a kid, and I kind of brought it back as an adult. So now, I mean, we have an awesome racetrack at the camp that the kids build RC cars and then go race them on the racetrack. And that's get them into this fantastic hobby. So then we have FPV drone racing. So FPV is first person view.
Yeah.
So you got kids sitting in their classroom wearing goggles, flying drones all around the camp.
It sounds like so much fun.
It is.
Like
I mean,
I want to go to this camp as an adult.
it sounds like work, but I mean, it's not. It's 7 weeks. I don't hate it. I love it. I really like. I'm at camp by 5:30 in the morning, but during the school year, you have to drag me out of bed to get up to go to work. And I love what I do, but in the summertime, I really, really love what I do. And the business has become the hobby of. I've kind of gotten away from doing all the hobbies. I just don't have the time. The business is now the hobby.
Anthony, question for you. Is this a retirement plan?
Yes.
You will do this full time.
It's a number of things. It never started off that way. Like I said, my idea was to try to make an extra 20-25 grand in the summer. I thought that was a good number. And the number came from trying to fund our 457s. So I know that was one of the questions that came up in the Facebook thread after the last interview is how did the summer program match that? So with being a teacher, we had these great options. I wasn't funding the 457. So when the camp started doing well, my idea was, okay, make enough money that I can fund my 457 and Sabrina's 457. So back then that was probably about 16 or 17,000 back 2011, 2012, when things started to turn around and we started to making a little bit of money. I was like, okay, that was the goal. And then all this, as much pre-tax as I could put away at school, take enough out of the camp that would supplement what we were making at school. So it was pay us through the camp, enough to pay the bills, but pre-tax as much as possible. And that's when 2011 is when we started maxing out. We'd always max out our 403s, but 2011 was when we opened up the 457s and we maxed them out. So I know Scott's quickly going to do some calculations, 2011 to 10 years of contributions, what happened. And I can already see the wheels working. But yeah, that's when we started the 457 and we almost maxed it out immediately. So we've been maxing all 4 plans out for 10 years now.
Going back to the actual camp and the type of instruction and the focus more on the joy of learning than the drudgery of that teaching can be with testing and all that. That's what made the Albuquerque Academy summer program work so well in New Mexico. By and large, it was public school teachers teaching their passion to very motivated students in an environment where there wasn't the testing, where it was, 1 hour of what they love to do. And Scott, I had told the University of Redlands that I thought they should develop a program in the summer because it's a beautiful campus. There are not these kind of programs in Redlands, and there are definitely the kind of parents that would love that. And I think it would have been enormously popular, but wasn't there long enough to try to do something like that. But California lacks that. What happens, I think, is kids end up doing sports all summer. I don't think there's the other parts of things like living in DC. Kids went to camps. It's more of a cultural thing in the East Coast.
I know my demographics show that way more than half my families are dual income. So they need somewhere for their kids to go in the summertime. And I think parents who have two good jobs, maybe there's a sense of guilt. Here we have a town camp, which is very, very inexpensive, which would be run by high school kids. And you're talking about 10% of what we charge. It's really nothing. But you're playing kickball and capture the flag all day. And then you have what I have. And I guess parents who have two good incomes figure that, okay, if we're going to go to work and make money, we're going to send the kids to a really good camp where they're going to learn something. So I've tried, I don't do a whole lot of demographics things, but I've asked families, dual income, single income in our registration. So we just haven't have an idea of what's going on. I don't know what people make. I don't ask that. But I just know where we are. And, I think the parents that aren't dual income, they're just taking care of things during the day. And they're with us from camp starts at 8:30 in the morning and they get picked up at 3:30. That's enough time for mom or dad to go get a whole bunch of stuff done during the summer.
What's
But I'm
the name?
surprised that California doesn't have it. Like I have a sister in LA and I know her kids do like surf camp. She's at Huntington Beach. So, we're not near the beach. I'm north of New York City. Getting to the beach is a haul from here. And, maybe you have the town pool, but if you want to go to the beach here, you're an hour and 20 minutes to Long Island before you can hit a nice beach. So it's a different I think it's a different culture.
Yeah, I just don't know any. Like none of my son's friends, none of my daughter's friends have ever like gone to something like that. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's just I've never heard of it.
There's a big national tech camp called ID Tech Camp out of California. But they run their programs out of colleges,
right?
And college students teach them.
I have seen those. Yeah,
that's a big name that's around the area, but it's very expensive. And from what I understand, it's not taught by like certified teachers. All of my teachers are New York State certified teachers.
What's the name of your camp?
Discover Camp.
Discover. That makes a lot of sense.
Know why?
This is so fascinating to me for a number of different reasons, but I mean, this is like something I totally would have loved to have done.
I would have loved it too. I didn't go to summer camp as a kid. That's why, like, again, when I started it, I had no experience running a business or running a summer camp. So and it's very, very different. Here, summer camps are handed down from parent to child, and it's a family business. There's organizations that I can't even join because I kind of started things my own way, and I'm not part of that group. So we started something from nothing. And remember I told you how many kids that other camp had when I left? 500?
Yeah.
They're down to about 100 now.
Oh, wow. So if you don't stay innovative and on top of what's, what people want, you're going to lose
I
the
think it was
kids.
more a way of the way the camp was run.
Yeah.
So
I don't run it like a business. I never run things like, I don't look at things like what's going to happen at the end. It's, somebody comes to me and like, oh, hey, Anthony, we got a 3D printer down. Can you order a couple more 3D printers? Okay, no problem. They'll be here tomorrow. And it's just like, this is probably stupid, but I'm not looking at the bottom line all the time. I'm looking at the end. And at the end, if we make money, we make money. So the woman that I used to work for, unfortunately, it was all about the dollar and saving money and saving money and saving money. And I treat my teachers who I work with, I think I treat them really well. They make good money. Their kids come to camp for free. So, that could be on a, if they were paying for a camp, that could be $5,000 per kid per summer. So I think that's the right thing to do.
Anthony, so that drop off from 500 to 100, that wasn't, kids getting lost like that famous camp song, Hello Mother, Hello Father. Here we
No,
are. It was at Camp Granada. And then do you remember? Is it Jeffrey Hardy? They're about to organize a searching party.
no, it wasn't. But I think it had something to do with the people that left and the way that things were run. And I've been in one location for 15 years. She's been in about 8 locations in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So, when you don't, I rent the local school at my own parish. So my priest just raised my rent a tremendous amount, but I would never think of leaving because it's my own parish. Like, okay, you need the money, you need the money. There's nothing I can do. Um, so, I just look at it like, okay, the campus supporting. There's no school there anymore. All of our Catholic schools here in New York, I would say 75% of them have all closed, and you just have these empty buildings now. So my building is only used for religious education at night, and it's empty during the day. So in the summertime, we're picking up the majority of the expenses for the year for that building.
Interesting. What do you have? So I'm kind of interested in the COVID economics of things, and you don't have to share everything, but I'm curious as to what sort of fixed costs you have, whether or not. So if the camp doesn't happen, two questions. One, is there insurance that you can buy against something like this? And then two, doesn't sound like it. And then
Yeah. So when this was going on, there was some pretty good Facebook groups for summer camps, and everybody thought that insurance was going to be able to cover some of this. And the insurance industry looked at this as an act of God, which acts of God are not covered. So literally, there is no coverage at all. And we pay part of our insurance. We cover like something like if your camp were to burn down and you would have to refund everybody, that's covered. But COVID wasn't covered. So fixed costs. I have one full-time employee. His name's also Anthony. This gets crazy. We just call him Mel from Melendez. And so he worked out of my house for about 10 years. He's like a little brother or a little son here. But he's now working remotely at his house. But he was a certified teacher and also in technology. But again, in 08, 09, when things shriveled up, he lost his job. So I asked him to come work for me. So literally it was, come work for me. I have no idea how I'm going to pay you, but we'll work it out. And it was, taking my Eastchester paycheck, getting some cash, giving him something to live on until we got through the tough times. We'll go in there. So he's my one thing. He gets health insurance. I also, this is the crazy part, and I'll kind of explain this I have a pension for him because if I don't have a pension, I'm going to lose him. So he'll go back to teaching if I don't have some kind of incentive for him to stay. Then I have another Dave, who is the other technology teacher at the other school. He works for me part-time 12 months. So he manages all my hiring of my counselors. So we have between 80 and 100 counselors that work for us. So I let Dave kind of handle that part of it. So he'll work part-time. So
Did,
his
did you say
salary is
did you say 80 to 100 counselors?
yeah,
Wow.
80 to 100 counselors, 4 to 500 kids. Yep. So it's like a 4 to 5 to 1 ratio. Yeah. So he handles that, and it's a huge retention. We have a lot of kids who come back to us every year. So it's not that bad. COVID was tough because kids didn't want to work. And I had a lot of teenagers went on unemployment. It was kind of sickening. But that's what they did. My kids both work for me. So the pension covers, this was something that the accountant did. So he kind of looked at what the camp was making is, you really don't need it. You have your teaching job. You don't need to make much money at camp. Why don't you start yourself a defined benefit plan? So we set up a defined benefit, which covers me, Sabrina, and Anthony. And the reason it only covers the three of us is we're the only full-time employees of the camp. It doesn't cover part-time employees. So it's a great way of putting away more pre-taxed money, which I think we'll get when we're 62. But that just keeps going. That keeps going away, and I don't even look at that.
Who manages that?
Me, it's in Vanguard.
Okay,
all in
good.
Vanguard.
Great. Good.
99% of everything we have is in Vanguard. I'm like a walking billboard.
No, I think that's
Yeah, it's just it's VTSAX and VBTLX. That's it. Two funds.
so no international.
No, I think I think I have like 5% in international in that. I can look it up, but it's like three. I'll look it up quick. I think there is some international in that, and there's one other one in that. But I used to have that with UBS, but the advisement fees were just too high.
Yeah.
And it wasn't doing anything better than my Vanguard was doing.
Yeah. How could it?
Yeah. So that's kind of my, that's where I think that's the greatest thing about having it. And I don't know, people who maybe created a side business and they didn't need the money. That's one way that they could save for retirement. But I didn't start that until 50, probably till I was almost 43 years old. I'm going to be 50 this year. So that's all that, again, that wasn't 2011. That was the first step, funding the 457. And then the next step maybe was like 13. It was like, okay, let's start funding a defined benefit program.
What will how will COVID change how you handle income from the camp going forward? And yeah, let's go with that. And then I want to talk about Dan's earlier question about the camp being part of your retirement plan, but let's go with that.
So, the camp, because Sabrina and I didn't take a salary for over a year, because we have our regular teaching job, it's not like we missed it. We just didn't put as much money away. So everybody that works for me, I always tell them, please do not rely on this money to make ends meet. So, if you're going to make 10 grand with me, don't go out and buy a house that's going to be an extra $1,000 a month mortgage where you're relying on this money. This is retirement money, fun money. I always try to tell people what I do with it. Dan, remember I bought like 6 copies of your book? So I loan out the book all summer long and try to get all my teachers to read Teach and Retire Rich. So I have 6 copies of that, and I have 4 copies of The Simple Path to Wealth. So if you read those 2 books, more than 99% of every other teacher. So I try to get teachers to read those 2 books in the summer and tell them, look, take this money and defer your school money, just like I did. So it's hard to change habits. But what I started doing is, now that my girls are 19 and 21, I help my kids' friends start Roth IRAs. with their camp money. So my girls started, well, they don't even know, but when they started working at camp when they were younger, I started their Roths at like 13, 12 and 13, 12 and 14. And whatever they helped me with, I would pay them for, and then just started them a Roth. So they weren't really getting a paycheck, they were just getting a Roth. And when they were old enough, I kind of explained what I had done. And my little one, who stayed home this year from college, she went up and tutored, babysat children and tutored children during the day while mom, who was a teacher, had to go to work. She made quite a bit of money, and she maxed out her own Roth this year. Like, I didn't even rely on me. So she was like, and she was really, really proud of that. Like, she kept putting money. So she kept Venmoing money to put into Vanguard. And that's pretty cool.
Venmo to Vanguard.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, that should be the name of the episode, even though it's like 2 seconds of it. That's so cool. That's a great. What a kind of an amazing legacy to leave. You know, we always talk about a legacy of like money to leave, but like what a great legacy already to be leaving. I mean, they're 19 years old and they're already funding their Roths, and like,
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Okay, but still, how will COVID change the way will you bank more of the money in case there's another pandemic at some point in time, or some other act of God, which, I mean, how might you change if any going forward, or did you think you survived it well enough that you're okay?
it's an S corp, so you're really supposed to cash it out every year into your personal. So,
right.
I mean, I could, and this is what happened this year. It was either take the 150 in SBA loan, which is a low interest loan, or go and pillage my investment accounts, where years past I had taken the profits out of the camp. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to balance it. Do I take a loan? I think I'm at 2.75%. Do I take a loan at 2.75% and pay it, or do I pull money out of Vanguard that could be making, let's say, 7 or 8%? And I never even 10 years ago, my brain would have never thought like that. But I always bang things off the accountant and say, just no, take the loan and we'll pay it off when we can. And maybe we'll pay it off in 1 year. Maybe we'll pay it off in 5 years. Maybe we'll take 15 years. But it's the money is always, when the parents pay, the money is always refundable. So I was much, much more careful this year not to buy anything that would have affected me if I had to refund the money suddenly. Because remember, last January, February, we were still in the mix of it. I mean, kids were still, half my kids were still remote at school. I had small classes. Kids were coming to school 2 out of 5 days. So we were putting our camp program out there 6 months before the camp even started, and trying to tell parents what we think is going to happen. That was probably the scariest time. So, the only thing I did this year is I lowered my deposits. And one of the things we do is we do not require full payment for discounts. So that's very, very common with camps. They ask parents to pay in full to get some kind of an early rate. So instead, what we do is we ask parents to, when they enroll, we enroll them in an automatic monthly payment, which goes out through August. So if they enroll in February, they can make February, March, April, May, June, July, August, 7 months of payments to pay for camp. And it's just an automatic monthly payment that we have set up. So
smart.
I'm not holding on to all the money. So God forbid something happens, you just cancel all the automatic payments and refund everybody. But you're still going to have your fixed expenses that you're going to be on the hook for.
Right. How does this play into? So Dan mentioned earlier, hey, is this camp your part of your retirement plan? How does the camp? How do you see the camp fitting into your retirement plan? And then let's get into how your accounts have done over the last year.
So like, I don't see myself stopping working. So Sabrina and I now have 5.5 more years before we're done with our school job. So we're turning 50 this year. New York State, we'll both have 30, I think almost, I'll have 34, she'll have 33 years in teaching when we turn 55. We still haven't decided whether we'll go on our 55th birthdays, which are in December, or we'll wait till June to retire. Likely we'll just wait till June. So we'll be 55 and a half when we retire. We can't, I would love to go early, but everything is tied to health insurance. You,
Right.
you walk away from health insurance if you retire early, because then they call that resigning, and you walk away from any sick day buyouts. So I don't know how common that is across the country, but we bank our sick days.
Yeah.
I can bank up to 230 sick days and get paid out at a quarter of what they're worth. My wife's is even better. Sabrina's are valued. She has unlimited banking. They're valued at 100%. And when she retires, it goes to pay for her healthcare contributions, which are about 30 or 40%. So it's pre-taxed money. So the district holds that money until you hit Medicare age. So I'm getting, my money goes into a 403 or 457. Eventually I'll pay tax on that. Her money is completely tax-free. So it's a beautiful, it's an amazing system. So she'll get the district's contribution, and then her sick days will pay for the whatever it is, because like we'll pay 40% of our healthcare and retirement, but the district will cover 60. She'll have no contributions at all.
Wow.
Because of her sick days.
This is exactly why, I always think, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write like a national book, a book that applies to teachers nationally on like retirement, and really get into the retirement. But like, these are the reasons that the things you're telling me, it's not even just at the state level, it's at the county or the employer level that
it's at
completely
our
different.
School districts are literally 5 minutes apart.
Yeah, it's
so I know California is different only because my sister's there, and like LA is what, 500,000 students or something.
Yeah, they got a few.
Okay. My school district is 2,000 students.
Oh, wow.
And there's 30 different school districts in our immediate area, the size of, say, Huntington Beach.
Very decentralized.
Oh, yeah. Every little community is going to have their own central office, their own schools, their own little community. But then the community is going to be based on like the home values are going to be based on how good the school is. And you've got two districts could be neighboring each other, but houses on this side could be twice as expensive as houses over here based on the school district and the reputation of the town. It's bizarre the way it's chopped up.
Interesting. Well,
all right. So the other thing about the retirement. So yeah, I see Sabrina and I running the camp when we retire. So no matter where we are now that, especially since all the remote teaching that we did, and now that I have the other Anthony working from home, we've gotten used to working remotely where we could be anywhere 10 months out of the year, 9 months out of the year, running the back door, getting everything enrolled, and then coming back here for 3 months and running the camp. So yeah, if we need to do it or want to do it, it's there. That's something that we'll do. And I've always told my kids, if it's something that they want, they can have it. And if they have no interest in it, then hopefully the other people who work for me, they'll have an interest in it.
So for health insurance, this is kind of a diversion, but when you retire, obviously you're not ready. You don't have Medicare. Will you basically use the business to procure health insurance, since you'll have at least 3 people plus I guess 4 people, you have a part-timer, but is that how you'll deal with health insurance between the time that you retire and the time you hit 65?
No. My school district covers health insurance, but we have a contribution towards it.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. So I think right now, I think it's at 70. We get 60 or 70%. And then the district covers 60 or 70%. We have to cover the 30 or 40%. So it could cost us $6,000 or $7,000 to $8,000 a year in contributions. I mean, healthcare now for a family out here is like $25,000.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's
everywhere.
Yeah, that's
The
what
guy
ours
who,
is. Uh-huh.
the guy who works for me, his health insurance just keeps one person, and he's 30 years old. It just keeps going up and up and up. So during COVID, I put a cap on it. And I said, I'll give you a fixed amount per year, and whatever plan that covers, that's what I'll give you. I also, unfortunately, had to put my two guys on commission during COVID last year because I didn't know what would happen. I couldn't not pay them. So I cut their salaries, put them on commission, but then gave them a very generous bonus if the camp did well. So they both made more money last year than they've ever made ever working for me. But
Oh, they took more risk.
yeah, I gave them, they didn't really have much of a choice, unfortunately.
Well,
So,
I'm glad it worked out.
but at the end of the summer, I said, hey, you guys want to go back on salary? They're like, oh.
No. So what about you're super aggressive, or it sounds like you're pretty aggressive in your retirement accounts. You got a 403b, you got 457s, you got Roths, you have a defined benefit plan. And so two questions. One, how did you feel like April 1st of last year versus how did you feel on April 1st of this year in regards to your account balances?
We last year, right before COVID hit, my wife and I chaperoned a trip to Italy. So we're in Italy hearing from Americans what's going on in northern Italy with COVID.
Right.
And there was nothing on the news while we were there. There was
weird.
nothing. We were going town to town, airport to airport, and it was like nothing going on. So we get on the airplane in Rome and head back to New York. And like there were no checks, there were no spot checks. And we just basically walked into New York. But COVID was alive in Europe when we were there. And we were just very lucky that none of the kids got sick. But within, I think, 2 weeks of coming back, everything shut down. And COVID's happening, and we're in Italy, and I'm watching my accounts going lower and lower. I'm like, good God, what's going on? And the only thing I did, and this is from having experienced 2 market meltdowns, is I traded out all of my bond positions in my pre-tax accounts for equities. So all of my bonds in Vanguard went right into VTSAX. And I started that as it started coming down. I just picked a random number, 22,000. And I just started buying until there were no bonds left. And then when it came back to 30,000, I sold. I just put all my positions back in, and I got back to my 80-20 split. So, even though it went to 35, almost 36,000, I did what I had to do, and I did well during that time. I didn't worry what I lost during that. It was, I made money going down, and only because of 2008, 9, what I saw there. And I guess it was a gutsy move, but it was, kind of worked out. We've seen what's happened in the past.
Wow.
So far.
But oh my God!
So far, Scott.
No, I don't mean that as a like.
It was watching everything go down was extremely scary.
Yeah, I think.
Hold on. This is what scared me the most. So January, I had just made a college payment for one of my daughters, and everything crashed. And I had Dan, you had talked about this in one of your pods. All of my girls' money in college funds was very aggressively invested, and her account dropped by half. So, I mean, and the girls are very well funded through grad school, and I'm like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? And thank God it came back by August. And as soon as it came back, I locked 80% of it in for what they needed for undergrad. I was like, that's it. I'm not risking their money again. So by the time I had to make my next semester payment, it was all back there. That would have sucked.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wow.
One other thing that was really good is before I went to Italy, I had put money into the camp's pension plan. and I couldn't remember whether I had put it into VTSA. I didn't know what I did with it, but I couldn't do anything over there with it. And when I got back here, and I'm thinking, all right, great. I lost half of everything I put in January. It's all gone. I lost half of everything that went in. It was sitting in a money market. So so
Wow.
come the end of March, that was another good thing that happened. I just put that money into VTSAX. So I'm just lucky. That was pure luck.
Well, Anthony, you touched on the fact that you have experience with market sell-offs. And you said, I think the number two previously, so three total. And I think we're pretty close to the same age. Obviously, the dot-com meltdown, and then, of course, the housing crisis. Do you think if this had been your first crisis, you would have tried that bond liquidation strategy? Because I think it's pretty genius from
Hell no.
today's perspective.
I remember the tech meltdown. I was young. I mean, I was only a few years into teaching and I had just started my 403. I remember my account going from 80,000 to like 35,000. And back then, I think it was Travelers. Remember, I was telling you early on in my career, it was Travelers. And I'm like, get me the hell out, get me out, get me out. And
Sell,
you know,
sell.
we all did it. Everybody did it. And we got out, and then I don't know when I got back in, but all those stupid things we did, and I didn't know any better. But 2008, I did nothing. So the
Yeah, me too.
real estate boom, I just kept putting money in, but I didn't do any trading. And I remember a friend of mine telling me that in '08, he's in the bond insurance industry. He had told me that during the real estate crash, him and his brother, who worked for he works for UBS, they were buying up these bonds that they knew were stable and municipal bonds. They would never ever default. So they just kept throwing everything they had at these bonds. So he told me that he had bought at the low market. I kind of used that strategy for the only thing I had was bonds. I don't really have much cash, is just trading out the bonds.
How much did having a pension give you more peace of mind to again
So
do this?
remember our last interview, I told you that we had that CFP benefit at school. So one of the guys had told me, he's like, the way my funds are situated, he goes, you got to think of your pension as your bonds. That's your fixed amount. That's not going to change. You're going to get your 60 to 64% pension. Everything else, you really don't need to be that conservative with. So, I'm an 80-20 split right now, which I think is okay for somebody my age, but somebody who didn't have a pension, maybe at 50, they'd be 70-30 or 60-40. So, I might even be a little bit more aggressive, but I think in our situation where we are, there's no need to be more aggressive than we already are being. Yeah, the pension does play a big role in it. We have something to fall back on. I don't see us losing any of this, but you have the pension to fall back on. And even if we lose the camp, it's we've already saved enough. And again, I know we talked about this last time, but Sabrina and I don't live above our means. We live a very nice life, but I drive an 11-year-old Toyota. I love cars. Believe me, I would love to have a new Porsche in the garage, but it's just, I kind of have changed I've changed my thinking. And maybe when I retire, then it'll come when I retire.
Well, Scott, he can't afford pants. I think that's the way he saves money. He just wears shorts, according to his wife.
I wear shorts all winter long. I love shorts and flip flops. That's my my wife calls that my uniform.
Nice.
So do I, but I live in Southern California, so.
You guys don't know this, but I grew up in Australia, so like flip flops were a big thing in Australia in the '70s. So I've worn like flip flops my whole life. All right, so Scott, you ready for these totals?
Yeah, let's
get it. we probably have about 5 to 8 minutes
I know.
left, but
I've
yeah,
been watching.
I can't, Scott, let's in our mind. Scott and I are sharing a document in real time here. So I'm going to guess what his total is. Okay. And you guess too. All right. Cause it's been
So
2 years.
we had like 7 and change, right, on the 403 last time we spoke.
It was 750 each. Your wife, in both cases, with 403B and 457, had a little bit more, and then it was, I think, 244 and 242 each for the 457, so roughly 2 million. So I'm gonna guess. Scott just guessed my number. I'm gonna use the old
3.01.
and one. I'm gonna use the old.
All
What
right,
is
Price
it?
is Right,
The
man.
game show thing. All right, so here's the number that Scott said. He said 3 million, and I said 3,000,001 cents.
You're pretty close. 3.157.
Round of applause. Round of applause.
So the big one, I mean, we've continued maxing out both accounts. So the 403 is up to 1.15, and the 457s are both up to 450.
Wow.
And like I told you guys earlier, now that we're 49, but we can make our over 50 contributions, that's already started. So like when I tell people at work, when I do my financial seminars that I'm doing $104,000 a year, they're just like, their minds are blown. But this is the most important part that I try to teach everybody. And I think this is, this is not me. This is from one of the readings, is that Sabrina and I have learned to live on 50% of what we make.
Wow.
And when we retire and we're getting a 60% pension, we'll be making more just from our pensions and all of this. So I've seen teachers retire who are living on 100% of what they make, who are saving nothing. And when they get a 60% pension, they can't live. So
Right.
you learn to live on, say, even 75% of what you make, and you put a little money into your 403. Now you can live comfortably. You can survive. But
You put in the work, Anthony. This is not something you just started. You've taught for over 30 years. Like you say, you've lived below your means. Sure, you made a couple mistakes like we all do at the beginning, but you got smart really quickly. Vanguard, low cost index funds, and you didn't take summers off. I mean, you did the work. And as someone who taught for a dozen years, you've taught for almost triple that. Teaching is not easy. So this is very well deserved for you and your wife.
One of the things that's happening now is we feel like we're trading our time for money. And that was one of the books that we read. And that's starting, now that we're turning 50, it's like, okay, do we really need to continue this path? And when can we kind of slow down? Because we do love vacations, but COVID, no vacations. Well, that's one of the tough things, is we do work so hard that we just don't get to slow down.
That was that was actually one of my questions. I wrote it down. Do you ever just get tired?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know that my wife, she's not going to work during the summer. Like she needs that summer to wind down because she puts in so many hours during the school year. But so I just think for some, they just need that.
If I have a week off and I'm around the house, I get bored. There's only so much organizing you can do in the garage. And
I think once our daughter's at college or a little bit older, she'll probably be that way as well. But given what you have done, what you've accomplished, I feel like you're the kind of person that we need talking to pre-service teachers across the United States. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to get you another job here when you retire, but like your story is the one that needs to be told. Like, this is what we want really to see. Like, one of the goals of 403 Wise is like, we would love to see kind of almost pre-service teacher counseling, right, on personal finance.
My own children who are going to go in, one's going to be a speech pathologist, and the other one's going to be a psychologist. They're already on their way. They already see what's going on. But I completely agree with you, because I just met with all the new teachers that my district hired. And I told them, like, if you just start this and just put this much away, you will have $1 million in 30 years. I'm like, no, you won't. I'm like, you will. And it'll be even easier for you because you'll have higher contributions. You'll have $1 million, but $1 million in 30 years won't be worth as much. You
Right.
want to have 2 million. And yeah, I don't know how you get into this, you break into the schools, how you get the teachers to do that. Even teaching high school kids about financial literacy, that's another important part.
Yeah.
Well, as we've said many times, Next Gen Personal Finance and gpf.org, an organization we are very fond of, they are making some real progress, Anthony, at the state level, and not just a handful of states, many states. So I think some good things are happening there. As we mentioned before, we have another event in a couple minutes here. So, and we will continue to check in with you. And obviously, I know we talk offline. We always enjoy it. And Scott and I always say this, but we sincerely mean it. We are going to look you up in New York. There's so many 403B friends in that area. But Anthony, what would you say a final message for our listeners? And again, this isn't the final word from you, because we're definitely going to do this again.
Anybody can do this. This is not unique. Start small, start early, and just keep contributing. There's no secret to this. Every single person that you've had on in the past says the exact same thing: the power of compounding interest. You start right in the beginning, you keep your costs low, and you slowly increase your contributions. This is what I try to teach all the teachers at my own school district, but my school district is very, very small. And remember, we'll talk about this another time, but we've chased away all of the insurance company advisors out of my school district. There is not a single one in our buildings. And I think more school districts need to do that. And they need to have a CFO, head of finance, that will tell people, you're not allowed here, get out. So, remember, I've sent them to you. We send out warnings to our entire district when an email comes in. They'll send it to me, and then I'll send it to the district. Warning, this is a sales call. And we warn everybody. We chop them off. It's great.
Scott, what a great way to end. 2 key messages: save money early, chase away sales agents. I love it. What a great
Chase away the
chase away the sharks. What a great way to end. Anthony, thank you again for your time, and thank you for all the advocacy and education you're doing in your community.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you. Let's touch base in 2 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony.
Cheers.